Seidel is in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina with more. Mike, good morning to you. Wow, active behind
you. Here we go.
Wow.
Yes, it is a wild morning out here on the beach at Kitty Hawk. Our winds are gusting over 40 miles an hour, so over tropical storm force. And behind me, you can see the more than agitated and angry Atlantic Ocean. Some of the wave heights are very impressive. The buoy off Hatteras right now, maximum wave height so far, just under 45 feet. Now, as far as wave heights go, closer in around Duck in those areas, we've got 10 to 14 footers as expected. The tide is coming in, high tide in the next hour to hour and a half. So far, so good on the erosion. We don't really see any, but it is still kind of dark out here. It's all going to be a matter of what we have tomorrow morning at first light and once the water backs out. But we're going to have the high water all day long. And we also have that, not only that, but we have the storm surge warning. Surge is expected as high as 4 feet, and that's going to be especially from Hatteras down to Ocracoke, because those beaches face right into the swell coming in from the south and southeast. This beach doesn't face in that direction. Our beaches face a little east of north or a little north of east. So with that said, we're in better shape from that perspective as far as the storm surge goes. Winds will continue to gust 40 to 50 miles an hour. Down at Cape Hatteras, we've had a gust at the stations just outside of the Buxton Township of 51 miles an hour. So they're gusting pretty strong down there. And they've already had sustained winds there of tropical storm force of 39 miles an hour. The rain, look at the radar. Once again, we were saying early in the week it probably wouldn't rain, and then a couple of days ago we were thinking, well, maybe we'll get scraped by some outer bands. Now it's looking more and more like we will get little, if any, rain on the outer banks. The best chances as you go down towards the Hatteras Island area. By the way, Highway 12 was shut down last night at 6:30 p.m. until at least tomorrow morning, and maybe beyond, depending on how long it takes that water to get out, and then they've got to come through the bulldozers and reopen 12. So it's closed. You can't go down past the inlet bridge south of Oregon Inlet. So we have the wind, we have the blowing sand, and we have dry weather and probably a little sunshine too today as the air has dried out on the western side. You'll notice it's not concentric anymore, and the hurricane has continued to slowly weaken, but it's moving very fast. And at that rate, by this afternoon, it's going to be biased. We'll have more of a north wind, and tomorrow we'll see weather improving dramatically. Plenty of sunshine Friday through the weekend, and we'll see if they'll allow swimming by tomorrow. We have the rip current statement up and the surf advisory, heavy surf advisory statement up through midnight tomorrow night.
Mike, question for you. Now, you've covered storms and you know storms inside and out. This one seems a little bit unique in the sense that when we evacuate, when we pull away from the coast, we're talking bands of heavy rain, just lots of rain coming down, lots of wind going well inland. The impacts in this case are a little bit different. It's more focused closer to the coast.
Yes, the entire focus is right here on the beaches, and that's why the inland areas will barely know anything's going on. If you're not watching TV or on social media, hey, you'll notice the wind's a little stronger, but you get back to 95 and there's really no wind at all, or no significant wind at all. It's all about what's going on here at the beaches, and thus the evacuation of Hatteras Island, because Highway 12 gets compromised in situations that are non-tropical, even in the wintertime with nor'easters. So the impact, again, continues to be the surf, the potential beach erosion, the rip currents, and the overwash on 12 that strip the barrier island, Hatteras Island, and Buxton had water in the streets night before last at high tide. So all of that area is underwater. We'll be showing live cams throughout the morning that Mark Sunneth has set up and down those towns, Avon, Frisco, Rodanthe, and down to Buxton. But in the meantime, it's a bit of a sandblasting morning here on Kitty Hawk, and it's a nice, comfortable morning without wind and clouds right now. Temperatures are holding in the mid-70s.
Yeah, you can look at the positives there, but hopefully stay safe. I mean, looking at the wave behind you, I mean, that is intense. So be safe out there for sure. That's Fox Weather's Mike Seidel live from Kitty Hawk, New Jersey. Thanks, Mike.
Kitty Hawk, North Carolina with more. Mike, good morning to you. Man, that angry ocean behind you.
It's pretty agitated, I can say, this morning here at Kitty Hawk. The winds are coming in off the Atlantic, northeast, northeast. We're gusting here 35 to 40 miles an hour, so about tropical storm force. The highest wind gust I've seen is at the Cape Hatteras buoy, the one far out, about 175 miles now. That's fairly close to the center of Erin. And earlier, around 4 o'clock this morning, how about 63, east-northeast, 63 gusting to 85 miles an hour. So that's a hurricane force wind gust. And once again, that is closer to the hurricane. Hatteras at the Coast Guard station has gusted in the low 50s, I believe 51 miles an hour. The wave heights, by the way, at that buoy peaked out at just about 45 feet. Right now they're reporting 35 to 36 footers. Again, that's about 175 miles. Closer in, the duck buoy reporting 10 to 15 footers through the morning hours. And look at this at the Kitty Hawk Pier. They are breaking out as far as the eye can see. It is really crashing here on the beaches. We have lost some sand, but so far so good. The high tide is really right about now, but as you can see over here, the water has not really breached the dune line at this point. It's come up pretty close, higher than last night's high tide, yesterday evening. So far, we're happy to see that, because we thought for certain that we'd have the water and even maybe some wave action into the dune line, but this is the best news of the morning. Now, we still have one more high tide, and that's coming up late this afternoon into early this evening, but by that point, the storm's going to be well past us, because it's moving at about 17 miles an hour. But the wave action and just the frothiness of the surf, it's always a terrific photo op out here when you see something like this. By the way, it is not raining. You look at the radar, all the rain bands are off the coast. We've had a few spotty raindrops. That's about it, but we do have enough wind to create the sea foam, and we've had some sand erosion. That's why I've got the glasses on and the hood up, trying to protect myself from getting sandblasted here in Kitty Hawk. So there you go, Craig and Bain, it is one of those stormy mornings. Tropical storm warnings and storm surge warnings continue. Heavy surf, and all that runs until the heavy surf and the rip current issues run till midnight tomorrow. The weather tomorrow will be sunny. The winds will be much lighter. We'll still probably have limited swimming, and then things improve on the beaches for the weekend. But the best news this morning is the beaches are hailing this okay right here. It's a different story, though, down on Highway 12, where we have the overwash and the highway closed last night.
Yeah, no surprise. You've been talking about that all week here, Mike. I appreciate it. And talking with McLeod behind the scenes, he says the Coast Guard in Hatteras is reporting 51 mile per hour gusts, so no surprise out there. Of course, we'll check in with you in a moment. That is Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel from Kitty Hawk. Thanks for checking in from North Carolina. With more, Mike checking in with you this morning. Good morning to you.
And good morning from Kitty Hawk, and this is the day we've been waiting for all week. We've been out here since Monday talking about the wind and the surf, which is going to ramp up Wednesday night into Thursday, and here we are. And the winds have ramped up right now. They're gusting over 40 miles an hour here on the beach at Kitty Hawk. There's a lot of sand being blown around, but so far so good on the beaches as far as erosion. But look at the Atlantic. I went out on the pier to shoot some video. We'll turn that around and show it to you near the end of the pier, and boy, when those waves come under the pier, you can hear and you can feel the pier just being rattled by the force of that water. Right here on the coast, the last breaker, it's got to be about 5 or 6 feet, but offshore we've got 10 to 15 footers. Some of the buoys, now the buoy way out east of Hatteras, about 175 miles earlier, peaked at just under 45 feet. And they gusted to 83 miles an hour. Nothing like that on the coast at this point. We don't expect winds that strong, but we have seen gusts over 50 miles an hour up and down the Outer Banks from Hatteras all the way up to Duck. By the way, Highway 12 has been closed. It's cut off. You can't go south of the Oregon Inlet Bridge. They shut down that at 6:30 last night. They're hoping to get it open sometime Friday. We'll see how they make do with the amount of heavy equipment they have, the front-end loaders, the bulldozers. There's a lot of sand to get off that highway from there all the way down to Buxton. Look at the surf coming up and the sea foam. This is about as high as the water has been so far this morning. Notice the dune line is intact. It's getting right up close to the sea oats. On the other side of the Kitty Hawk pier, it is getting up into the sea oats, but I think this is a good sign at this point, because the next high tide this evening, the storm's going to be well past us. The wind's going to be more north. And I just think this is really the high tide of concern at this point, with the speed, forward speed, the motion of Erin out of here. Tomorrow, the sun is back out. The winds die off north 10 to 15. We're still going to have a certainly rambunctious Atlantic. And right now, the heavy surf advisory goes through midnight tomorrow night. So whether they allow swimming tomorrow remains to be seen, but certainly today, obviously off limits. There is nobody out on the beach basically, except folks that are out here for photo ops. So Bain and Craig, just a very windy day, but you notice it's not raining.
Yeah.
Look at the radar, it's all staying off the coast. We've been talking about this week that it may not rain at all, and it may not rain at all. It's not an inland impact storm. It's all about here. You go back to Raleigh, there's hardly any wind. That's well back inland. But even back to 95, winds are only running about 5 to 10 miles an hour. So it's all about right here at the coast, on the beaches. We've got some sand erosion. So far, the beach erosion looks minimal. I don't see any deep cuts, but it's hard to tell with the tide up and the waves still crashing. But the surf is the story this morning. This is just really churned up, agitated, angry, but it looks like a giant wash tub. In fact, I know when I'm in front of the camera, it looks like I'm in a giant washing machine. That's the effect we get with this kind of system, and what we typically get with tropical storms and hurricanes at this stage. When the wind goes offshore, then we get the cleaner sets, and that's what the surfers like.
Yeah, and you know, Mike, I mean, looking behind you, intense surf. I mean, that's some scary stuff. You kind of mentioned that you talked to some folks a little bit when they were out there. Anyone out on vacation or visiting, and how are they feeling about not being able to go in the waters?
Well, they're not happy about it, but at least they didn't have to evacuate this area. We talked to more than a few people that had to move from Hatteras Island, Avon, the Buxton area, also Rodanthe, and they came up here and got rooms. It's late in the season and things aren't sold out here. They're happy to continue their vacation, albeit that they can't go in the water. But yesterday, even though you couldn't go in the water, it wasn't a bad day. We had a fair amount of sunshine in the afternoon, and people were out here trying to get their late August tan on. But I think they're much happier the fact that they can relocate up here to Nags Head, Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills, versus getting kicked off this area too and having to go back home. That's not the case. Fortunately, with the hurricane staying well off the coast, it's basically the beach hazards, the rip currents, the high surf, and the risk of erosion.
So
but the
true.
properties this morning are fine. They're fine.
Great.
No issues on any of these properties. Not enough wind to take off shingles or do any structural damage.
It's awesome because it keeps the small businesses going. Once people are there, at least they can go support them and then just watch from a distance. By the way, Christopher Tate behind the scenes saying Nags Head gusting to 43 at times, Duck 41. And then earlier we had the Hatteras Coast Guard reporting a 51-mile-per-hour gust there. We appreciate it.
Right.
That's Fox Weather's storm specialist, Mike Seidel and Kitty Hawk. And we'll check in with you from North Carolina throughout the day. Mike, good morning to you.
And good morning. It is a windy, sporty morning here on the Outer Banks. Highway 12 was closed last night. It'll stay closed at least into some portion of tomorrow because they've got to get the sand off the roadway once the water backs out. But look at the water this morning. The Atlantic, boy, is it agitated like a giant wash tub. Waves are breaking way beyond the pier. I was on the pier at the end earlier shooting the video, and you could even feel the wave action coming down through the pier and the post, the pylons, and boy, it just shook the pier. These are 10 to 15 footers off the coast based on the buoy. The highest wave we've seen so far is the Cape Hatteras buoy. Now that's well offshore, and they had a 44.9 foot wave, just about 45 feet around 4 o'clock this morning. The wind sustained now about 30 miles an hour. We're getting gusts at Hatteras at 51. Up here, gusts are running about 45 miles an hour. We're getting some sand erosion, but so far, even though we just had a high tide, look, the water just barely got up to the dune line. So that is a promising visual this morning. We thought it would get into the dune and take some of that out, but right now, at least here, we're looking pretty good. We still have one more high tide, but again, we've got the big overwash on 12, not unexpected. The mandatory evacuation continues there. A lot of people here just staying in the hotels right now, some coming out to get their photo ops because they've never seen the Atlantic like this, and it is always impressive. As many times as I've covered tropical storms and hurricanes, just the fury and the energy being unleashed by this hurricane. Fortunately, 200 miles off the coast is going to go by later this morning, early this afternoon, and by tomorrow the winds will be north at 10, and we will be back to a better beach day. However, the high surf advisory and the rip current statements go through tomorrow through tomorrow, so we'll have to see what the ocean rescue folks, the lifeguards, say about going in the water on Friday. It's still going to be choppy and rough. Bain and Craig, back to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike Seidel. We appreciate the update. We'll check in with you throughout the day from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
We know to North Carolina. Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel joins us from Kitty Hawk in the Outer Banks. Mike, good to see you. I'm sure you're feeling it because we can see your camera shot.
Yes, what I'm feeling at the back of me, and this is why I've got my rain pants on and my jacket, because we don't expect any rain today. It's just to keep the pain away from getting sandblasted for 7 or 8 hours. Not that it would kill me, but you know, you might as well, as they say, work smarter, not harder, be more comfortable out here. And the winds have been gusting 40 to 45 miles an hour. But what we want to show you is the blue sky that's poking through. We've got dry air that's been wrapping around the west side, the left side of Hurricane Irma, so it's not going to intensify anymore. And we've had the sun pop out now for the past 25 to 30 minutes. The rain, look at the live radar, there is nothing nearby, and I suspect that we're not going to get any rain today. Maybe a couple passing showers on the backside, but as we had talked all week, there was not going to be an inland flood watch, flash flood threat problem. And even here on the coast a couple of days ago, we thought we could get scraped even yesterday by a few showers or maybe gusty squalls, but that has not been the case. Our winds are still gusting down at the Cape about 50 miles an hour. Here, our peak gust at the First Flight Airport is about 40 miles an hour. Remember, that airport is not on the beach, and it makes a big difference. If you just go a couple of blocks inland or out to Highway 158, US 158, it's not nearly as windy as right here because we're fully exposed. The tide is beginning to go out, and the good news this morning, I can report, is that a high tide did not get into the dune line. This is a good thing. We have one more high tide of some concern later today, early this evening, but the dune line is intact, winds gusting 40 to 45, no structural damage. I haven't even looked at power outages. I can't imagine there are any power outages. It's really all about this picture here. Look at the surf out here, the angry Atlantic. I just checked the Scripps buoy not far off the coast, and their significant wave heights are about 13.5 feet. Significant wave heights are the highest third of the waves, so that puts that in perspective. It's hard to tell what they're breaking out way out because they're breaking beyond the pier, and when you're at the end of the pier, you can feel the pier rocking from the force of the wave action. And boy, you can see the mist too now that the sun is beating down on these waves. It's like a big wash tub out there. But the tide is now going out. The wind is north and northeast. It'll go more north as the hurricane goes by this afternoon. It's about a couple hundred miles off Hatteras, the closest approach. Here comes a wave coming up. So even though the tide is going out, we're still getting some of these, I'm not going to say rogue wave, but some of these waves that still come up. A lot of sea foam being created by the wind. So ladies, about what we expected. And again, the good news is, at least here in Kitty Hawk, as far as I can see, the dune is intact, and that was the biggest concern here with Hurricane Erin coming up this way.
Yeah, and those waves impressive behind you, Mike. That is Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel, live from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
Very different scene out of the Outer Banks that we've seen evolve on the ground. Now we have North Carolina in through the Outer Banks. So look into Kitty Hawk right there with the wind. That's been a part of the story as well. Yeah.
Yes, Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel. He is joining us live from Kitty Hawk in the Outer Banks. Mike, good to see you, man. The winds are whipping and so is the surf.
Yes, both as expected. We've gusted 40 to 45 miles an hour here in Kitty Hawk. Down at Hatteras, they've gusted just over 50 miles an hour. And as I mentioned earlier, the highest wind gust I found is way offshore, the Hatteras buoy, about 175 miles east of Cape Hatteras. Earlier this morning, around 4 o'clock, gusting to 83 miles an hour. 85 miles an hour was sustained winds in the low 60s, so not quite hurricane force sustained winds, but certainly hurricane force wind gust. And they had wave heights up to about 45 feet. Now they've been dropped back to 30 to 35 feet. Our wave heights offshore are running 10 to 15 feet based on the buoys. It's really hard to measure. I went out on the end of the pier, and boy, it is rocking out there. You can feel the force of the water just rocking that pier. You can feel it gyrating as those waves come down through the pier and through the pylons. Meanwhile, on the beach, we just had a wave that came all the way up to the sea oats here in the dune line, even though high tide was a couple of hours ago. So we're not, we're still dealing with the wind and the water being pushed up. Still have the storm surge warning of 2 to 4 feet, but that's not going to verify here. And by the time we get to the next high tide early this evening, the winds are going to be more north as the storm has gone way past our latitude. And so I'm thinking that this is going to be the worst of it. So we're done. We've done pretty well. We thought we were going to lose a lot of beach and we were going to eat into the dunes. That's not happening. It remains to be seen how much sand we lose. It's hard to say because we can't see beyond where the surf is, but just taking a look, looking up the beach, I don't see any deep cuts where you would see a big drop off in the sand. So that's promising too. So Marissa and Bretta turning out better than expected. And as expected for most of the week, not a drop of rain here on the Outer Banks. Even some dry air wrapping in. You can see that on the visible satellite photo. We've had blue sky, we've had sunshine in and out for about an hour and a half. So despite the wind, it's a windy day, but despite the wind, you can come out on the beach and get some photo ops and just stay out of the water. Again, no swimming today, double red flags. We'll see what they decide tomorrow. The wind is going to be much less tomorrow, about 10 miles an hour from the north, but the surf is still going to be churned up, and they may end up keeping you out of the water again tomorrow. Weekend looks fine, though, as far as the surf goes and the rip currents.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask you about the weekend. From your shots, it doesn't seem like we have any beach erosion cuts going on, anything like that, because of course that would be a concern reopening for Saturday and Sunday, just what the beachfront looks like safety-wise. So from your perspective, obviously we can just see your camera shot, but from what you've seen up and down, do you think that the beach conditions in terms of the sand and its positioning is going to be good to go on Saturday and Sunday?
I got to think so, because this is
Nice.
the worst of it. This high tide.
Yeah, it's the
we'll have
closest
another high
pass right
tide, as
now.
I mentioned, but we're not seeing any. What's that?
It's the
say that again?
closest pass. This is Erin's closest pass to land right now, so it gives us a good sort of feel of where we're sitting.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and so since we don't have any big cuts and we haven't lost a lot of beach, there's sand erosion that gets blown down the beach, but in my observation here, we're going to be fine for getting back out on the beach. Even tomorrow, because the sun will be, even the sun will be out, and the wind will be much less, 10 miles an hour from the north. So kind of like yesterday, people were out here enjoying the beach and the sun. They couldn't go in the water. We'll just have to take a wait and see on the situation in the surf tomorrow. Maybe they'll let you go out to your knees. But right now, we still have the rip current statements up through today, tonight, and tomorrow for swimming.
Yeah, I would imagine with the rip current statement up, that's going to be a big consideration for what they're going to allow happen this weekend. Mike, thank you so much. That is Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
All right, and let's
bring in Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel. He's actually down at the ocean front. There he is. Mike, good to see you. Just looking at the shot, you wouldn't even realize that it's a sunny, beautiful day. It's just really windy.
Yes, it is very windy. That's a given. We have a hurricane a couple of hundred miles offshore, albeit a weak-hitting hurricane, and with the distance. But it's a big storm, so we're still getting tropical storm force wind gusts across the Outer Banks. Earlier this morning, Cape Hatteras, the Coast Guard station down there, gusted to 51 miles an hour. That's the highest gust I've seen. There may have been some higher gusts on land. Now, off the coast, I've been mentioning the Cape Hatteras buoy, which is about 175 miles east of Cape Hatteras. That was right out not far from the center of Erin, and around 4 o'clock this morning, about 63 gusting to 85 miles an hour. So that's hurricane force wind gust. And they had wave heights at one point 45 feet. Now they're down in the mid-20s, 24, 25 feet. So things are easing up, but that's still a lot of wave action out there. This is not a good day to be at sea. Speaking of the sea, look at the Atlantic. Boy, it is all churned up like a giant wash tub. I was out on the pier earlier. Let me show you the video I shot from the pier. You'll get a sense of what's going on out beyond the pier, and also the waves rolling all the way into the dune line. This is over on the south side of the pier to the dune line, but not into the dunes. So the same situation on this side. As far as the eye can see, I don't see any inundation of the dune line. Boy, that is good news, because we were really concerned with that storm surge warning and the big waves that we have. I expected water in the dune this morning, but nope, the dunes have held on. Now, we've had some sand erosion The wind just blowing the sand down the beach, but that's not a big deal. And if you look down the coast, you don't see much in the way of beach erosion. We have some undulations in the surface of the beach. So there's been a little bit of sand lost, but at this point, I'm pretty confident to say that the beaches have come through this in better shape than expected by far. Now, driving around in the sand isn't easy. This is a truck just off the beach, and look at this. This is about 45 minutes ago I shot this video, and they're in the sand, they're stuck in the sand, and then the officer gives the driver, the young driver, some advice, and they get out of the sand. And what was that advice? Put it in four-wheel drive. I thought the driver was in four-wheel drive, but anyway, lesson learned. When you're in situations like this, go with the all-wheel or the four-wheel drive, and you'll get out of this situation. Because I was surprised the truck was stuck in the first place. I didn't know they were just spinning their wheels. The Atlantic is up. It's going back now because of the tide going out, but we have another high tide this evening. I just don't think it's going to be an issue as far as getting into the dune line. Tomorrow we're back in the sunshine. The winds will be north at about 10 miles an hour, 10, maybe 15. So a lot less wind. Skies will be sunny, a good beach day on the beach. But the rip currents will still be an issue tomorrow, so we'll see if they have the double red flags, but certainly it's not going to be a very safe day for swimming. I'm not sure at this point if the ocean rescue folks, the lifeguards here in Kitty Hawk and up and down the Outer Banks are going to let folks get back in the water until Saturday. And the other issue we still have Highway 12 closed. They've got the heavy equipment, the front-end loaders ready to clean that off once the water gets off the roadway, and there will be some digging out to do, especially down around Buxton, where the water started going into the town, right there off the beach by the motels, late the day before last, on that high tide the day before last. Britta and Marissa, we are just hanging in and staying out of the surf, because that's the way to be safe here on a day like today.
Yeah, check out the kids behind you. That's kind of a cool perspective as you sort of pan over and see the girls that are running up the dunes. Have you seen a fair amount of people coming out, Mike, or no?
There's a fair amount coming out, getting some video, getting some photo ops. You know, you come to the beach every summer, and I know you ladies go to the beach quite a bit.
Yeah, you have your week that you have with your family.
Right, and how many times do you get to experience something like this? And what a great experience, because you didn't have to evacuate this part of the Outer Banks. We didn't get a drop of rain, so it's not a washout. And you'll be back on the beach tomorrow, maybe not in the surf, but back in the beach. So the people that had to evacuate down on Hatteras Island that came up here, I think they're fairly happy about how things turned out. Their vacation continues into the weekend. You'll probably be able to get back in the water as we get into Saturday and Sunday, and the weather's going to be nice. And so all around, just a brief hiccup in their vacations, with the exception of having to move. And, you know, I don't know the financial setup when you get kicked out by a hurricane. A lot of people now have traveler's insurance, so maybe they'll be able to recover a few nights down there, and they pay for the nights up here in Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills, and Nag's Head.
Get creative and make it work. That's Fox Weather Specialist Brian. Oh, sorry. Brian Norcross is coming up next. I got ahead of myself, Mike. But so good to see you, Mike.
Well,
we do appreciate it.
It's okay.
Brian's coming up next. I just skipped too far ahead of the script.
Brian's a little older and much smarter than I am.
And he's inside not dealing with winds whipping sand against his legs this morning. So we appreciate you taking on the sand.
And he's also smarter than me.
I won't comment on the age. I'm not going to comment on the age. You're both wonderful, but also just very good to talk to when we deal with these sort of scenarios. But let's go ahead and take it to Fox Weather Storm Specialist. No, here we did it again. Oh my God. Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Brian
This is what happens
Norcross.
when you put the two tired moms together. Mike, this was a bad plan. Mike, we're going to officially say goodbye. You are excused from the dinner table. Thank you for coming. We'll talk to you soon. There he goes.
Yeah, it's better just to leave. Better just to leave. Brian, let's let Brian take it away. Brian.
Yeah, Brian, come on in. Save us. Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel. He is actually on the beach in Kitty Hawk, so we gave you the vantage point. Now we're down at the sand itself. Mike, it's a rough day out there.
It is blowing sand, and actually a few raindrops are rotating around the far western edge of Hurricane Erin. Hardly enough to turn your wipers on, but I can feel it along with the sand coming right at me, incoming right here on the beach. There's the surf. The tide is going out. That's a good thing. We've got one more high tide semi-concerned, but not really, because this morning's high tide barely even touched the dune line. It's raining a little harder now, pelting yours truly. As far as you can see, the waves are breaking, and you can't really see as far now because the rain has lowered the visibility, but they're breaking and they're breaking again. It's like a giant wash tub, 10 to 15 footers way out there, and then they roll in to the beaches. We have not had a lot of beach erosion. I've been looking down the beach through the morning hours, and I've noticed there's a little bit of undulation. If you look down the beach through the morning hours, you'll notice a little undulation. Here comes the water up, even though the tide's been going out for about 4 hours. It's still higher than it should be, but no deep cuts in the beach. That's a good thing. And this morning, when we had high tide, after daylight hit here around 7:30, the water got right up to the fences, and that was about it, thankfully. We thought for certain that today, at least this morning's high tide, we'd see water and maybe even some waves breaching that dune, but it didn't happen. Nobody's complaining. The only real breach here on the Outer Banks has been down on Hatteras Island, and from the bridge south, that's Pea Island, all the way down to Hatteras itself, Cape Hatteras, Buxton, those towns in between Rodanthe. Highway 12 is closed, and they are trying to get it reopened tomorrow. That's what they say on their statement. We'll see. They'll have to see how much sand is on the roadway, especially south of the Inlet Bridge in that Pea Island area. Very narrow there, and also you have the other towns, Rodanthe, Frisco, waves, and then you get down towards Buxton, and there's a lot of sand. I can tell you there's a lot of sand that's going to be left behind once the water backs out later on today. So the wind's still gusting 30 to 40 miles an hour, nothing exceptional. The highest gust I've seen was earlier this morning, at least what I've seen on the Outer Banks, ladies. The Cape Hatteras Coast Guard station gusted to 51 earlier, and I've been mentioning the highest wind gust overall was at that Cape Hatteras buoy, which is about 170 miles east of Cape Hatteras. It was real close, closest buoy we had to the hurricane, and at 4:10 this morning, they were 63, gusting to 85 miles per hour, so that's a pretty hefty wind, and 45-foot waves. Those waves now have been chopped in half. They're down in the mid-20s, low to mid-20s. So there you go. Things are looking pretty good here. It could have been a lot worse as far as the damage to the beaches, but what I'm saying in my observations here, as far as I can see on Kitty Hawk, the dune line is fine. Nothing was compromised. We've lost a little bit of sand. There is some wind erosion from, the sand blowing down the beach. That's not a big deal. The properties are fine. The power is on. So it couldn't have been really turn out any better, at least right here, considering we had a Cat 5 over the weekend and just a Cat 3 yesterday coming by here. Fortunately, 200 miles offshore makes a difference. And let's go down to Isle of Palms. Robert Ray is back out on the beach this morning. Robert, you're farther away from the storm. I saw your video from yesterday, and you had quite the surf. And the surfer, that surfer guy, it was like Jeff Spicoli from the movie in 1982. That was incredible. That is one of the best surfer sound bites I've heard that wasn't scripted in a movie.
Mike, you're exactly right. And yeah, I wonder if everybody knows what we're talking about. Spicoli, Fast Times at Richmond High with Sean Penn.
Right.
Totally the best soundbite ever. We're gonna roll that in a second, Mike. But I want to talk to some of the folks here that are breathing a sigh of relief.
I've been watching him for the last 2 days, been going to him, and the waves have steadily been building. I remember we were talking about what was the beach going to look like when the storm begins to peel away. Well, now we got Mike up there live, and Mike, I'm interested to see what kind of a toll the waves actually did take on that beach.
Well, so far, so good, Mr. Van Dillen. We have not seen any big cuts in the beaches, erosion-wise. And the high tide this morning, one of real concern, the water only got up to the fence here. So we have lucked out, turning out better than expected. We were very concerned about the tidal surge. We have the storm surge warning and also the wave action getting into these dunes, which protects the property, but we didn't have it happen. Now, we do have another high tide a little after 7 this evening, and we're going to be watching that, but considering the storm is now passing by to our east, our winds are going to go more north than north-northeast. In fact, First Flight Airport in Kill Devil Hills now winds blowing north, gusting 35 to 40 miles an hour. Remember, the beach here is not north-south. It leans a little bit back to the west. So instead of being like this, it leans like this. So when you get a northeast wind here, it's almost perpendicular to the beach. Speaking of the beach, we've had a little bit of erosion. See the undulations in the beach here? A little bit of sand, but no big cuts. I've seen a lot worse where you have 1 or 2 foot drop-offs. And so we're fortunate there. We've got some sand erosion, but that's to be given when you have winds here gusting over 40 miles an hour. I did check Cape Hatteras once again. Still their highest wind gust was earlier this morning at 51 miles an hour. And Bob, that buoy way off Hatteras, about 175 miles, which this morning at about 4:10 a.m., 63 gusting to 85 miles an hour. Well, it just gusted again to 73 miles an hour, just below hurricane force. But the wind there is now north-northwest, an indication that the hurricane has gone by that buoy and the wind has come back around offshore. So the bottom line is we have done fairly well, better than expected, at least in visual range here at Kitty Hawk. We still have the issue down on Hatteras Island. Highway 12 is still closed. They're trying to get it open tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. First, the water has to go out, and that'll be after the high tide tonight. And then they've got to get those front-end loaders, which are down there on 12, to get the sand out of the way and build that protective dune back up. So the mandatory evacuation continues there. A lot of folks did move from there, Bob, up here to continue their vacation. I don't think they've been too disappointed. Yesterday was a good beach day. You couldn't go in the water. And tomorrow's going to be a great beach day, but I still think there's going to be at least some limitations on swimming tomorrow as we still have the rip currents. But the ocean's going to be much calmer, and the wind tomorrow will be north at about 10 miles an hour. So it'll be a delightful late summer day here on the Outer Banks. Despite the fact that you may not be able to go in the water. Here comes the sand. Well, I want to tell you, this is why I wear these protective glasses. And this is why I've got my jacket and pants on, Bob. Not so much because of a little bit of rain, but just to keep the sand from blasting me. I looked in the mirror in the car. I've just got a whole layer of sand on my face. But you know what? That's a first world problem. I can wash that off later. But it is windy enough to pick up the sand here in Kitty Hawk.
Mike, it's all part of the experience, my friend. No, I feel you, the same exact thing. But I'm watching, you've got the jacket on and it's protecting from the sand. What's the temperature like right there? Because I had to change jackets. I had a rain jacket and I put on the winter shell because it's cool. This does not feel like an August day by any stretch.
Well, the temperatures here is in the upper 70s. It doesn't quite feel like it here, but I want to tell you, we talked about, Bob, how this is going to be a beach storm. I mean, primarily a beach storm, no impacts inland. And I went up to get a sandwich about 2 miles inland, and you come out of the restaurant and you're like, what hurricane? The wind's maybe 10, 15 miles an hour, maybe some higher gusts in the treetops, and that's it. That's it. I mean, this is what we had expected. In fact, we had thought we would get scraped with some squalls yesterday. Earlier in the week, we thought no rain, and now we're just getting a few light showers. In fact, they're hard to be seen on radar. Hey, if we have time, Bob, I want to show you this video. I think we have a few seconds. Show you this video, and this is what happens when you try to drive in the sand. And this morning, I grabbed this video. This is in the parking lot at the hotel, and I'm thinking, not a great idea. And I was thinking, hey, it must not be all-wheel or four-wheel drive. Well, the officer came up, and all of a sudden, she gunned it and got out. And I said, what'd you do? He said, I told her to put it in four-wheel drive. So the young driver obviously didn't know about four-wheel drive. I don't know what the situation was, but she got out very easily once she put it in four-wheel drive, and she went on her way.
Well, that's some good news right there. I do remember, if you did have a problem like that, Island Beach State Park, which is the southern tip of the one of the Barrier Islands in Jersey, you can go on the beach in the wintertime, but you have to take the air out of your tires so you have more surface area. That helps. But if you have four-wheel drive with a big old monster truck like that, I don't think you even need to do that. Mike, great stuff out there in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Appreciate it. We will check back in with you in a little bit. I want to see what the beach looks like when that next high tide cycle comes up. So we'll check back in with you in a bit, man. Thanks. All right, you guys, that are affecting areas by the Outer Banks. Got Mike Seidel out there. He's been in Kitty Hawk for the last couple of days, and he's been showing us the waves, steadily building. I mean, if you've been watching our show for the last couple of days, the waves on Tuesday, Wednesday, growing in size. Right now, it's just a mess out there. Mike Seidel, you're reporting live right there from the beach. Let's get a look at what's going on out there, man.
The wind, the blowing sand. We've actually got some rain showers right now, making it a little bit more uncomfortable, but with the temperature in the upper 70s, nobody's getting chilled. I want to show you some of the sand erosion we've had, and we're building a little bit of a sand dune here as the wind comes under the pier. It's maybe hard to see on TV. Everything's so blown out with the brightness, but this is this little bit of a dune here. So we've had some sand erosion, but look down the beach. As far as the eye can see, we see some waves in the sand. I don't know if you can pick those out on live TV because of the brightness out here, but there has been some erosion, minor at best. But what I'm not seeing are the deep cuts in the beach that we often see during hurricanes and tropical storms and nor'easters, where you come down to the edge and you step down, there may be 2, 3, 4 feet of sand that's been eaten away. So we're not getting that, and I don't think that's going to happen. And the other thing we found out this morning, we were hoping for the best, and that's what happened. The water only came up to the fence this morning. And behind that is that nice looking dune with the sea oats. A lot of beach communities would love to have a dune like this because that's really a nice protective feature. It didn't even get touched, not even a scratch. Now we have another high tide this evening around 7. I would be surprised that we get any kind of inundation into the dune as the tide is going out, now coming back in shortly, and then the high tide around 7 this evening. That'll be it for the tide issues. Now, as far as the storm surge warning, that continues, but I got to think that's mainly for the sound side flooding. The wind is blowing out of the north now, so that's blowing the sound water from the Albemarle down to the Pamlico Sound at the south. This is the area to the west of Cape Hatteras and Ocracoke and just north of Morehead City. You know where you live, how the water gets blown down from south to north, or rather from north to south. So that's up for the high tide again this evening, and once we get through the high tide cycle this evening, that's going to be it because the winds are going to die down substantially overnight. And tomorrow we're looking at northerly winds, Bob, about 10 miles an hour. Let me show you the waves from the end of the pier earlier. The pier is now closed for safety reasons. I was out there and it was a little shaky. The wave action coming through those poles and vibrating the pier. And I said, you know what? I think it's time to go inland. Where you can see the waves breaking as far out as you can see. And it was hard to say how high they are. The buoys just offshore are running 10 to 15 feet. They still are. And we still have big crashing waves here on the beach as the tide goes out. Not a good day for surfing, not only from the safety perspective, but we don't have the clean sets we had 2 or 3 days ago. They should clean up a little bit tomorrow, but we're not going to get a real offshore wind like a west or northwest wind. It's going to be more northerly, and on this part of the coast, that's basically still a bit of an onshore flow because the coast here goes back to the north-northwest to the south-southeast. And Bob, we've had a few rain showers, but all in all, it played out as expected as far as the rain goes, but unexpected, and we're not complaining. The dune line is fine. The wind has not been that extensive. Peak wind I've seen on the Outer Banks was at the Nagseg Coast Guard Station of 51. There may have been something a little bit higher. That is tropical storm force. And the peak wind well offshore was 85 at the buoy about 170 miles east of Hatteras. Their wave heights, by the way, this morning, get this, around 4 o'clock, as the hurricane went near them, they had wave heights 44.9, almost 45 feet early this morning, and that's when they gusted around that time to hurricane force. Right now, they're still gusting recently just over 70 miles an hour, but it's a north-northwest wind on the backside of Hurricane Erin. And Bob, as you mentioned, I've looked at the infrared picture as you have. There's a lot of dry air now wrapping into the system as it slowly encounters colder water tonight, tomorrow, and becomes a shell of its former self. Remember, a few days ago, a Cat 5? Thankfully, it weakened, and thankfully, it didn't come inland.
Well, yeah, you're so right. You're right. Cat 5, it's hard to imagine it was that big, and that's when the wind field was rather small. And now it's spread out so much. Does it not remind you of the same size Sandy was? It's not going to take the same path, thankfully, but it's about the same size. It's really big.
Yeah, and I was right up near where you are. I was in Point Pleasant Beach for Hurricane Sandy, which was in 2012. Could it be 13 years ago?
Yeah.
My gosh. And
Yeah, I know.
it was, it was in late October. It was a colder storm. But I remember the next day going out on the road there, and the parking meter, the top of the parking meter was at my ankle. So that gives you an idea of how much sand was brought in by Sandy. And in this case, basically the sand that's being brought in just kind of blown in a little bit. You got some sand on the windshield in the parking lot, but nothing like that because the surge came in several blocks in Sandy, in Point Pleasant and all that Jersey Shore. Well, as we know, it was a big, big disaster.
Obliterated. It was obliterated. Yeah, I spent it up there in Asbury Park. That's the one that cut another inlet into Mandaloking. Remember? The ocean reached the Barnegat Bay. Just amazing, that one. We don't have to worry about that with this one, Michael, which is good. But what I'm interested too, there's a lot of people out here that are still coming in and looking at the beach, even though it's on the chilly side. What's the population down there? Are you looking at people on the beach that are just kind of watching the water?
There have been some folks out here watching the water. I mentioned earlier there were more than a handful of people that were on Hatteras Island, Bob, that had to evacuate from Buxton down at the south end, also Avon, Frisco, and Rodanthe. And we talked to a lot of them on the beach Tuesday and yesterday, and they came up here and they found rooms because the island, or this area, it's not fully booked. It's not sold out. It is late August. A lot of schools are back in session. College kids are going back to class. So you can get a room here. I think they're fairly happy, not as happy as they would be if we hadn't had a hurricane, but they didn't have to evacuate from here. They didn't have to go back home on Tuesday or Wednesday or on Tuesday. So they're here and they're waiting for the sunshine tomorrow, and a lot of them were on the beach yesterday. The question tomorrow still remains, will they allow swimming or not here on the Outer Banks? But the sun will definitely be out and the sand will not be blowing around. And we'll be back in the morning to bring you that beautiful sunrise here on Fox Weather.
Excellent. Excellent. I love it. Now we'll talk to you from New York, God willing that I get back up there today. So I'll be seeing you from Dryer Confines. Michael, great reporting as always. I appreciate it. I'm so glad you're on the team, man. You do such a great job. Mike Seidel out there in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. And they're bringing in Mike, but he's out there. Mike, what's it look like right now on the beach?
The beach is basically empty. A couple of gentlemen walking up and down the beach. We're getting some folks getting photo ops. They shut down the Kitty Hawk. Yes, we're in Kitty Hawk. Kitty Hawk Pier. Got to make sure I'm in Kitty Hawk and not Rodanthe or Kill Devil Hills. The Kitty Hawk Pier this morning because it is just a little gnarly out on the end. These waves out there, 15 footers beyond the pier, 10 to 15 footers, and you could feel the force of the water rattling the pier and the pilings. Looking down the beach, not a whole lot of folks out here today. It'll be a much better day tomorrow. Sun's going to come back out. Temperatures upper 70s near 80 and a north wind at 10 miles an hour. Maybe 15, but a lot less than today. Right now we're gusting 30 to 35 miles an hour. Winds are easing off. We've had some sand erosion, a little bit of a dune here. It's hard to see on TV, just trust me. Maybe 4, 5, 6 inches. There's the big dune. This is the one that keeps the property safe. And we've got fences and sea oats and grass. Boy, a lot of beaches would love to have a dune that looks this healthy and this wide. And it would do its job if it had to. It didn't have to this time, fortunately. Things turned out for the better, Bob. We thought that the water would get into the dune and encroach and take away part of the dune. Never worried about water getting into the properties, but the water came right up to the fence this morning at high tide. Now, the next high tide's around 7 p.m. tonight Eastern. Don't think there's going to be an issue. The real issue now is the wind blowing from the north, from the Albemarle down to the Pamlico Sound. So the sound side flooding is a concern down there around north of Morehead City in those areas. Carteret County, that's the county I was looking for. Those areas where the water blows down the sounds. And we see that occasionally with tropical systems and even cold weather systems, nor'easters. So maybe tidal flooding there 2 to 3 feet could compromise some roadways down in those areas before the wind lightens up later on tonight. Here's the angry Atlantic, and as far as the eye can see, you see whitecaps because the waves are breaking way, way out there. In fact, just whitecaps all the way out there looking at some of the buoy cameras. It's just an angry, churned up sea right now. These waves right here at the beach are about 3 to 4 footers, but once again, they're breaking and breaking again as they come in. Still a giant wash tub effect, even though the wind now has backed around a little bit from the northeast to the north-northeast, and more northerly as we go on through tonight and tomorrow. Tide is beginning to come in a little bit. Look at this. We got water coming back up here as the tide starts to come in, and we still have, 4.5 more hours till high tide. So there you go, Bob, kind of a wrap up. The major impact by far, as expected, was going to be Hatteras Island. Highway 12 is closed. Yesterday they said, well, they'll try to get it open on Friday, but they have to wait for the water to get out of there. And that's going to take at least, I think, till the morning, through tomorrow morning's high tide, Bob, and then they can get in there with the heavy lifters, the heavy bulldozers, and the front end loaders, and get the sand back to where it should be and get that road open, hopefully for the weekend, so people can get back down there and get back into those rental units they've probably booked for the week before Labor Day. Bob?
That's the worst part about it. It's like your week to be at the beach and there's a hurricane right out there. It's like bad luck. But Michael, you're going to be out there tomorrow, right? You're going to catch that sunrise. I want to see what it looks like, difference between now and tomorrow.
There'll be a big difference. Certainly a lot less wind. I won't need these glasses to keep the sand out of my eyes. And the ocean's still going to be rough in the morning, don't get me wrong, but there will be a big difference tomorrow because the waves are created by the wind. It's a transfer of energy down to the surface. And once the wind dies down, then you just wait for the energy to dissipate, and that's why the waves get smaller and smaller. And so tomorrow morning, a lot better day on the beach. I'm sure there'll be more than a few folks out here. The ones that got kicked out of Hatteras Island because of the hurricane and the emergency evacuation and came up here and got a room here to finish out their vacation, say through the weekend or early next week. And but thankfully, the impact here is very, very minimal. And basically, little impact at all. Except for the island, you could come back here tomorrow and say, well, you know, what happened? Where's the impact on the beach? I didn't really notice anything. Yeah, there's a little sand on your car in the parking lot, but I grew up at the coast. Salt water and sand, that's
you know it's up.
That's pretty much everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere you don't want it to be, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't wait to take a shower. I mean, it's like the sand grits all over you. It's good stuff. Mike Seidel out there in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Great stuff as always. I'll check back. I'll talk to you again tomorrow, man. Good to talk to you.
Okay.
That's right. Hey.